Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka. Today is May 13th, 2025, episode 116. On today's show, Bitcoin ETFs hit all-time peak. They bag over $41 billion in cash. And Bitcoin sharks and whales continue to accumulate and set the stage for new all-time highs. Just like this guy here. Insane. That's it, baby. Take those sharks and scare them away. All this and so much more on today's show. Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I am your host, Nick Toka, and like the guy in the video there who was approached by a shark pretty damn close. The shark clearly mistook him for a seal or something else, and then once he realized what he was like, this isn't part of my diet, and turned away. So the sharks in the crypto sphere are buying up all the Bitcoin, baby, and so are the whales. And the guy on the kayak is the regular consumer, and they should be plowing straight ahead the way he did and buying their own Bitcoin, but instead they're shying away like the shark, sadly, because soon there's not going to be enough Bitcoin to go around. All the companies, all the nation states, all the pension funds, they're all buying Bitcoin. There's not enough to go around as we are today. There's 8 times as more buying by the whales and institutions than there are actually new Bitcoins created by the miners every day. So where is this going to go? This is going to get to a point where there's major scarcity where there's no more Bitcoin remaining, and everybody then is going to be looking for your Bitcoin. Don't let them have it. HODL it. Number one rule in Bitcoin, never sell your Bitcoin. We're going to get to that point. It's going to happen in the next few years for sure, and it's probably going to happen a lot sooner than we think. And one bitty is going to be worth a hell of a lot. We've been pumping for about a week now. We've been sitting steady at 104,000 even. Another pump day. Ethereum is starting to pump. And as mentioned, we're looking for that pump in terms of alt season. When Ethereum starts pumping and Ethereum's hitting that all-time high, that's also our trigger for alt season. When you're looking at the alts and the shitcoins, which, look, we all like to, because we want to hit that jackpot of some, shitcoin really doing well, 10, 20, 50x, 1,000x. And, you make some good money, but you shouldn't be putting your big nest egg in this shitcoinery. You could totally lose your shirt in it. Bitcoin is one of those things where you put your money in and you wait. Okay, maybe it's going to take 4 years, maybe it's going to take 8 years, but you can almost be assured that this will be going up quite a bit, an average of 5x, 10x per cycle, and this is going to continue on maybe until infinity, until the year 2140. So if it keeps going 5x, 100% a year for the next 115 years, I don't know what that equals to, but it equals to a lot, like $1 billion Bitcoin kind of thing. A lot of the big wigs, Cathie Wood, Max Kaiser, they're betting on Bitcoin being $2 to $4 million by 2029. A lot of the other also big whales are predicting between $500 and $1 million Bitcoin this cycle. Let's check out some Bitcoin technical analysis right now. Bitcoin up 1.5%, 104,000. Ethereum up 10%, 2,712. Solana up 8%, $183. XRP up 5%, $2.58. Doge up 8%, 24 cents. Checking out the crypto bubbles, we've got quite a few up over 20%. ETHFi up 45%. Aging, what is this? Aging Layer, sounds old, up 25%. Ordi up 23%. Grass up 25% on the day. Baby Doge, cute, up 18%. For the month, Moodang, damn, up 662%. Ordi up 80%. Peanut the Squirrel up 170%. Toshi up 115%. And zooming out to the month, we've got Moodang up 1,000% for the month. Peanut 215%. Deep, which is Deep Book, up 174%. Kato up 150%. Taking a look at the market hash rate for Bitcoin, we've got it down a little bit, but still right at 900 billion terahashes per second, just under that. M2 money supply, again, we've got another peak in the M2 money supply. Let's zoom right in. As we see, before I zoom in, I always say this every day, folks, the pink is the M2 money supply, global money supply based on 21 central banks, and the white is the Bitcoin price. So the M2 money supply, basically, it tracks the creation of new money. So when they say, you know, the money printers gets turned on and they're creating more currency, this is what they're talking about. So this is tracking 21 central banks around the world and their money supply increase or decrease. And we see it's always an increase. And we also see that Bitcoin follows this very closely. So let's zoom right in and look at this. What is this? 80-something% incline here. So we do see also that Bitcoin, if we take a look at this hump here, about 60 to 90 days later, we also see the hump in the Bitcoin price. Then we see almost an identical track here, and identical all the way to here. And in fact, we also see a jump in price here. So I anticipate that we're going to be looking for a new all-time high very soon if we continue on tracking with the M2 money supply. Current Bitcoin market cap is $2,064 billion. Ethereum, $323 billion. XRP, $151 billion. Solana, $95 billion. Doge, $36 billion. Cardano, $29 billion. Tron, $25 billion. Sui, $13 billion. Chainlink, $11 billion. And AVAX, $11 billion bucks. Total market cap right now is at $3.32 trillion, with Bitcoin holding 62.16% of that, Ethereum 9.75%, XRP 4.5%, and Solana finally made the chart here. They haven't been on this chart ever that I've seen, only once when the Trump coin came out and all the memes went crazy. Solana holding 2.87% of the total crypto supply. Crypto Fear and Greed Index currently sitting at a 73 in greed. Yesterday was a 70 in greed, and last week was a 67 in greed. There are 1,065 days until the next Bitcoin halving in 2028, and blocks until the next halving. We have 153,394 to go. Total assets by market cap globally. Gold down again, $21.8 trillion now. Microsoft, $3.3 trillion. Apple, $3.1 trillion. Nvidia, $3.1 trillion. Amazon, $2.2 trillion. Bitcoin now was passed by Amazon. They had flipped them earlier in the week. Amazon clearly had a good few days here. So Bitcoin in the number 6 position at $2.065 trillion. Google 1.9 trillion, silver 1.8 trillion, Meta 1.6 trillion, Saudi Aramco 1.6 trillion, just 200 million it looks like behind Facebook. Currently you can get 962 satoshis for 1 fiat US dollar. The US national debt sits at 36 trillion 846 billion, equaling 107,629 per U.S. citizen, or 323,050 per U.S. taxpayer. Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, has saved $427 billion, $428 billion. That equals to 3,808 per U.S. taxpayer. So some big savings, about $1,000 a month per taxpayer they have saved thus far. With the Department of Government Efficiency. Me, for one, I'm going to actually be a little upset when they go. But I think just Musk is going to go and the team is going to stay together, which is effectively a bunch of number crackers from university. So let's see how that continues after he's gone without their, illustrious leader. Bitcoin ETFs hit all-time high peak, and they bag over $41 billion in cash. The popular U.S. Bitcoin ETFs have now accumulated over $41 billion worth of collective inflows following a recent bounce back in demand. Bitcoin ETFs continue to smash expectations. The funds have now racked up flows over $41 billion since their January 2024 launch, hitting a new all-time peak inflows. Data from far-side investors show that the cumulative inflows stand at over $41 billion following Monday's trading action. It's quite the reversal of fortunes for Bitcoin funds, which until recently were rapidly losing funds as investors pulled away from an unexpected and at times erratic global trade war. Now, the only people that were pulling away were the retail buyers, the sad common investor. The whales and the institutions, they kept buying. They were like, great, Bitcoin's on sale. I mean, I kept saying it in the show, guys. It's on sale. It's on sale. Buy it, buy it, buy it. And now those who did are sitting pretty. They were buying in at 77, 75,000. Those who didn't are saying, oh, I should have bought it. And now they're going to buy it at prices of, 30% higher. President Trump's bellicose trade rhetoric led investors to pull out billions from the funds during February, the month in which they had the worst day ever, and March, and into the start of April, as they avoided risk assets. But investors have a taste for risk again now. The new commander-in-chief has claimed his tariff war, and they're looking to Bitcoin. Yeah, this tariff war, it was the media who created a tariff war. I've always been calling it a negotiation tactic, and clearly that's what it was. And if they're saying, oh, well, it's not such a great deal with China. It's still 30%. Now, he did it smartly, if you think about it, right? So if they had said, oh, we're going to lay 30% tariffs on China, the markets would have tanked, right? So instead, he laid 100 or 200% tariffs on China. The markets tanked. Now that they go back and make these tariffs 30%, well, this looks like a fantastic deal and a great discount, and the markets pump, right? It's how you present it. I don't know if this was done on purpose. It probably was. These guys are smarter than we think. So we saw the traditional markets pump this week, and I think, really starting Monday. Bitcoin started on, first it started down, interestingly enough, when the deal was announced with China. Last week when the deal was announced with the UK, it went up immediately. Everything went up, including the traditional markets and Bitcoin, and the rest of the crypto followed the leading ship. And when the old saying is, when the tide rises, all ships climb, or all ships rise. So that's pretty much it. Everything's watching Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin going to do? Then the Ethereum follows, then the shit coins follow after that. It's like the money trails slowly from Bitcoin, it trails into Ethereum, then it trails down into the shit coins. And that's why you almost have a little bit of time generally when you see that Bitcoin's going to pump. You know that the lesser coins should, within a few hours or a day or two, should also pump. In an ideal situation, you would have bought in a long time ago when the prices were really bad, when everybody was saying, the world's coming to an end, and because we've got these huge tariffs and stock markets are dead and everything's dead. That would have been the time to buy. But really, even before that, the time to buy would have been a year and a half ago when FTX, had collapsed everything. More than a year and a half ago, about 2 years ago, when Bitcoin was way back down to $16,000, which very well might happen again if the history holds true. The time to buy. Let's flip to my other screen here. The time to buy, right, is here. Right here. So Bitcoin halving, April of 2020. The year after the halving, 2021, October, is the cycle peak. And then from there, December 2022, so effectively a year after the cycle peak, this is when you want to be buying this shit. Whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Injective, whether it's shitcoin, whether it's XRP, whether you name it, every single coin that has some utility, some value that is not going to go to zero, this is when you want to buy. Why? Because if you bought here, you would literally be just sitting around on your couch, not doing anything, watching the price go up and up and up and up and up. You wouldn't have to time the market and say, okay, this is the cycle peak right here, I'm going to get out here, right? Even if you got out, I'm taking clearly the previous peak because we're not at this cycle peak yet, but let's say you bought in here, the previous low from the previous cycle, 4-year cycle at $3,600, right? You could have just sat around, you could have said, oh, this is a false positive, this is not going to be the all-time high, because it's the year after the halving. You could have sat around and dumped it anywhere in here, from here and up, and you would have been sitting pretty at, from 3,000 to 55,000, 20, what's that? It's a big chunk. So same kind of thing. Whereas if you're buying in here, here we are currently, and which I really feel like this mark right here is really this right here where I'm circling. This point, if we're going to compare it to the previous cycle, I feel like we are right here waiting for this huge banana zone parabolic climb up to the new all-time highs and the cycle peak. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a similar kind of double peak this time as well, where there's going to be a big drawdown where everybody thinks that the world's coming to an end again, and it'll go from 60 grand to 30 grand, 50% off, right? At that point, maybe it's time to buy again. But if you had bought way back here, you could have sold it anywhere in this area here very easily. I know it doesn't look like much on the, it looks like a minute on the chart, but like if you really zoom this thing out, it ain't no minute, folks. Right? We're talking, you would have had from this point like months, February to we'll call it May, you would have had 3 months to pull out. And similarly, over here, the second peak, same kind of thing. You would have had from October until you would have had about 2 months to pull out. So I do anticipate something similar happening here. The purple is the M2 money supply, and the white is the 50-day or the 50-day moving average. And the green Christmas tree kind of color, green red. The green is green candles. The red are red candles. Green up, red down. But again, we're kind of sitting in that situation where we are looking at a very near to all-time peak. And for the future, because if you're buying in here, or I feel like there's still time, right? Especially in the alts. The alt season has barely started. When we're talking about alt season, we want to follow the price of Ethereum. So Ethereum's kind of now, I feel like it's starting to pace back up to its all-time high. It hasn't hit its all-time high, is still from 2021 as we speak. So once it gets up to over 4,500, then we're talking new all-time highs for Ethereum. So generally, the altcoins are going to follow the Ethereum price all the way to the top. So you might still have time for that. I know I've bought some alts, but again, I'm not breaking my bank with alts. I'm putting in, 5%, for example, and I'm trying to keep, everything in Bitcoin mainly, some XRP, some Solana, and then some shit coins, just in hopes that, I break out something nice with one of these or a couple of these, or actually, I'm in the green on everything, to be honest, because I bought, I didn't buy here. I bought, Bitcoin. I'm in way back here, and I've just been hodling. But Solana, XRP, I think I bought in somewhere around here. So again, and I bought some of the alts recently. I bought in right about here, some of the alts, right? Not that far below where we are now, because I felt like it's still time. But ultimately, if I had bought way down here, any of the alts that everybody thought were shit, right, and were gone and gone forever, then, and I did buy some of these, back in the day. I've got, Doge. There's big. If we bring some of these up on the chart here. Algorand, for example. I'm big on Algorand. I don't know where it's showing up, though. I'm not going to mess with the chart too much here, I guess. But interesting, it's not showing. It's showing jack all for the chart. I guess I haven't set this up proper for a while, or maybe I mucked with my setup. It used to show perfectly. But a couple of them, Injective, when you want to go into the, Inject is a good RWA real world asset, altcoin. If you want to get into the AI infrastructures gaming infrastructures, what I personally bought into, and again, I'm in the green because I bought a while ago. Superverse. I'm big on Superverse gaming infrastructure, right? AVAX, also gaming infrastructure. Echelon Prime, when talking about AI and real world assets. Injective, AI infrastructure. I'm big on Graphane. Also, its price is sitting at around 10 or 12 cents right now. The all-time high is 65 cents. And so it's still way below, we're talking 10x, I guess 8x, just to get back to its all-time high. And then beyond there, it might even, I'm hoping it goes 5 or 10 or 20x from the previous all-time high. So it's kind of a sit and wait situation if you can get your ass in at these low levels, right? That's what I'm aiming for. I'm not a genius investor. I don't claim to be. In fact, don't listen to me, right? Like, we second-rate investors, we can't be like these top-notch guys that are, maybe day trading or buying stuff and maybe they know the next direction. We can't claim to be these people. I don't claim to be this guy. I am the guy, and we, the viewers of my show, want to be the people who get our asses into these coins at these lows. This is our advantage, right? We ride the wave up. And then when everybody else and their aunts are saying, oh, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, buy some Bitcoin, right? Meanwhile, you are in way down here. Everybody starts talking about Bitcoin here. They're buying as you're selling. You're basically selling them the crap that you don't want because it's now gone up to an all-time high. You've made your huge profits all in this run here. And it's time for you to sell. Now, when something is bought, somebody buys it and somebody sells it, right? You want to be the person selling it at these highs, and whatever other schmo wants to buy it, by all means. But you definitely don't want to be that guy who's buying it at these all-time highs, right? You want to be the guy who's selling at these all-time highs, and someone else is going to be left holding the bag. In a year and a half's time, a year after the cycle peak, then you can be that guy buying it back from the guy who bought it on the high. That's like, now I lost my shirt. It's going to zero. Oh, I better sell it. And they basically went from 70,000 to 17,000. And then you're swooping in and buying what they think is garbage, but is, digital gold, right? This is how I play it. I don't claim to be this fancy investor dude. I know I suck, and I play to my weaknesses, right? I could sit there and day trade. And in fact, look, I've got a day trading account that you got to fuck around a little bit to learn, right? I put $100 and I'll watch a coin. I'll let it drop down as like we're showing in this, but more on a day-to-day. I'll zoom right into like 1 minute or even 1 second views, generally 1 minute or 5 minute views. I will see that there's a big drawdown. I'll buy it at the bottom. A couple hours later, I'll keep my eye on it, Price goes up, I'll sell at what I feel is the top, and I'll keep doing that. And I turned a $100 or 100 USDT into, I think I'm at like 300-400 in a couple months. It doesn't sound like much, but it helped me learn about day trading, to be honest. You always want to buy on the low, you want to sell on the high, even if it's within a couple hours. And you can never say to yourself and say, but it kept going up after I sold it. Well, so what, right? Then you choose the next little shit coin and you try to do the same with that. When it comes to selling time, folks, okay, make no mistake, there's 1,000,001 shows like mine. Let me zoom right in here. So there's 1,000,000 shows just like mine where they're telling you, we're in this together. I'm with you. I'm your friend. I'm this. I'm that. Make no mistake, when it's time to sell, nobody gives a fuck. Okay? It's every man for themselves at that point. If you bought it at a low, be sure to get out. You make your profit, you get out. Let some other idiot buy it at the high price. You don't want to be that person. It literally, don't anticipate people are going to be on their mics saying, yeah, now's a good time to sell, cycle peak, sell. Keep an eye on this stuff every day. The shittier the coin, the more you've got to watch it. If you've got the biddy, you probably don't have to watch it all the time. You know that over time, even if you miss the cycle peak, you wait another 4 years, you'll get to the cycle peak. It'll go up. It's consistent. It's never going to zero. Some of these shit coins could literally go from the price you bought it to nothing, right? If the shittier the coin, the more you need to watch this. You need to watch it like hourly kind of thing. If your thing is to do day trading, zoom right in, buy these little shit coins, again, with money that you can afford to throw away, not money that you need to pay your mortgage or rent or food. And certainly not, don't throw your Bitcoin money and mistake it for shitcoin money, right? This is a completely separate thing. You have your Bitcoin, which is your reliable long-term growth, and then you've got your shitcoin, 2 or 5% of what you've got, and maybe you just throw a couple bucks at it just in hopes that you hit one of these, 10,000% gains that you hear these, kid invests $300 and makes 10 million bucks, right? We all want to do that. So Fatstronaut, nice. Thanks for subscribing. Very, very cool. Appreciate it. Shout out to Fatstronaut. And damn cool name, I gotta add. Thanks. Feel free to, put up some chats. I will give a shout out to anyone who puts a chat in. I will definitely answer your question to the best of my ability. If you want to hop into the chat and, make some comments, I'll give you a couple 100s there. Fatstronaut. Very fat name. Love it. Getting back to our article. Investors had a taste for risk again. Now, the new commander-in-chief has calmed his tariff war, as we said, and they're looking for Bitcoin. The reason for this huge cumulative flows come down to investors previously locked out from the crypto investing space, now finally being able to speculate on the leading coin. They weren't locked out. ETFs have become one of the primary avenues through which investors in general are getting exposure to Bitcoin. Summit Roy, senior ETF analyst for ETF.com, told Decrypt Bitcoin dropped to 75,000 at one point in April, plunging from a new all-time high peak of 108,000 in January, in inauguration day of a U.S. president. Roy added that the crypto market pullback could have spooked investors, causing them to sell or at least hold off on adding to their Bitcoin ETFs. What could have also happened is there's all these yahoos out there who are into Bitcoin for the first time, perhaps, or these day traders that say, yeah, Bitcoin, I made 7%. Yeah, sell, right? And then they sell it and they watch the price go up to, new all-time highs, and they kick themselves, right? Don't mistake these little mini jumps as all-time highs. But following a string of rough weeks for flows, the reverse happened. We've seen the opposite. Investors took advantage of the pullback to add, he said. Yeah, the whales are adding, and the common investor, sadly, who needs the money the most, was selling. Bloomberg ETF analyst Eric Valchunas wrote on X that net flows is the top metric to pay attention when observing a fund success. Impressive, the Bitcoin ETFs were able to make it to a new all-time watermark so soon after a world was supposed to end, he noted, referring to the continued flows into the products following Trump's trade war. ETFs are popular investment vehicles that trade on stock exchanges, allowing investors to buy and sell shares that track the price of anything from the S&P 500 and gold to Bitcoin and real estate firms. After a decade, right, so when we're talking about Bitcoin, you certainly, if possible, you want to be a self-custody style Bitcoiner, right? Second option are two possibilities, right? If you have, and I anticipate that everybody on this channel, if they don't, they should have a tax advantage account, a tax-free savings account, which is offered anywhere in the US and in Canada, where you can put a percentage of your income into a tax-free account. So anything you make on that is tax-free. So ETFs work just like stocks. They can be bought within your bank, right? So you can buy this ETF and have it in your tax-free savings account, and effectively, you buy $1,000 worth and it goes up to 100 grand. Well, there's no tax on any of that. So there's one reason to go to the ETFs compared to an exchange, right? Number one, like I said, self-custody, if this is not an option. Number two, the ETFs and the exchanges are reasonable options. On an exchange, however, you will end up paying tax when you sell your coins. If you sell for 5 minutes on an exchange and then buy in again, you've already put yourself in a tax position. You've already sold. So whatever gains you made, you have to pay tax on this, right? The tax man will come knocking, and I'll be honest, it's bullshit, because just a couple of years ago, no, Bitcoin's illegal, Bitcoin's not real money, we don't want anything to do with it, don't touch it. And now suddenly people are making money on it and they want to come and take your freaking taxes. So I don't like it. ETFs, you can get around it with a tax advantage account. Anything right now, really the only things available are Bitcoin and Ethereum. Soon XRP is going to be available, but you definitely could, use an ETF account to HODL. Do we want BlackRock to custody our Bitcoin for us? Not exactly. Self-custody is the best way to go. You can travel the earth and you've got your money with you. You don't have to deal with any kind of bank. And when things become more available in terms of payment with cryptocurrency, you're probably going to see a lot of the Lightning Network payments, which will basically, it's very easy. If you haven't tried it, you should. If you've got some Bitcoin, send 50 cents or something, and you'll see the fee is basically zero, and the payment goes through, send some to a friend or send one to an exchange or something. It's immediate, within a second or two. And so you can technically spend that in the future. Hopefully you have some, you hodl for a few years, then the whole world starts accepting Lightning payments, and you can travel the world just with your little offline cold storage, and you can just pay with your cell phone. So ETFs are popular investment vehicles that trade on stock exchanges. Again, they allow you to buy S&P, gold, Bitcoin, and real estate firms. After a decade of saying no such products were going to be allowed, the SEC last year approved the Bitcoin products, mainly because, and I'm adding this in because BlackRock kept bugging, and they said, we want this ETF. And then finally Gensler said, okay, BlackRock, you want it? Let me kiss your ass because you mean so much to the country, and you're going to get it. So they allowed 10 spot ETFs to start trading on the American exchanges. Ethereum funds followed last summer, and now issuers are angling to offer a much wider array of altcoin funding pending SEC approval. Yeah, so it's not just XRP that's coming up. I'm not quite sure which, but there's going to be a few of them. Now, anything except Bitcoin is technically considered an altcoin. Just heads up on that. Bitcoin's recently trading for 105,000. Up 25% over a 30-day period, and only 4% off its January all-time high. So, I hope that we're going to see some all-time highs coming up soon. And certainly Bitcoin sharks and whales continue to accumulate, and they're setting the stage for new all-time highs. Bitcoin investors with 10 to 10,000 Bitcoins have expanded holdings recently. In a new post on X, the on-chain analytics firm Sentiment has talked about the latest trend in supply held by Bitcoin's key investors, those holding between 10 and 10,000 Bitcoin. At the current exchange rate, this converts to 1 million at the lower end and 1 billion at the upper end. So 10 Bitcoin, $1 million. 10,000 Bitcoin, $1 billion. Thus, the only investors who would be able to qualify for it would be ones with substantial holdings. Generally, the influence of any entity in the market goes up the more supply that they control. So the holders belonging to this range would hold an important place in the ecosystem. Collectively, these investors are popularly known as sharks and whales. Sharks are the lower end who own, 10 or so, and whales are the serious bigwigs into the billions. Now, here's a chart shared by the analytics firm which shows the trend in the supply distribution for sharks and whales, an indicator that tracks the combined supply held by members of these cohorts. There's even a term which I wasn't familiar with called shrimps. Whales and sharks, 10 to 1,000 Bitcoin accumulation in the past month, right? Accumulated 83,000 Bitcoins in the past month. And then when we go to the shrimps, which are really the retail investors that we talk about, the shrimps, 0.1 or less, dumped 387 Bitcoin in the past month. So this is what I was saying before. The shrimps, I wonder what somebody's called if they hold, between 0.1 and 1 Bitcoin. The common investor maybe. But the retail guys, like these shrimps, this is what I was saying. They're dumping the biddy, and everything they sell, the whales and the sharks are picking this shit up in record numbers. And at some point soon, there's going to be none left. This is the time when you want to grab whatever you can in terms of Bitcoin and HODL. Or, my plan personally is to track the historical prices, go and try and kind of time the all-time peak. But again, I'm in so early that even if I get above the 80-90% mark and don't time the top 199%, I'd still be happy. Then dump it on someone unsuspecting, thinking that now's the time to buy. Oh, the it's an all-time high price. We have to buy now. FOMO kicks in, right? And then wait a year after that, because by then we will know when the all-time price, all-time peak was hit. Because the idea is, if we look on the historical chart, it's happened 4 times already, and for me, I am hoping that the price dips again, and then I'm going to be able to buy 3 or 4 times as much as I had at the cycle peak. This is the idea. And again, I will start way back again at this time that I mentioned here, where it's the right time to buy, way down here, a year after the cycle peak, almost to the number, cycle peak November 15th, a year after December 15th, and we are actually here, November 15th, exactly a year, we are at the cycle lows. So the hope is I dump it up here, I wait patiently, I buy it down here again, 2 times as much, 3 times as much, 4 times, 5 times as much, and then wait again for the next cycle peak. It's a patient game. The more patient you are with this stuff, the better off you are. It's proven so far that anyone who's held Bitcoin for over 4 years has been in profit. So if you can hold for 10 years, 8 years, 12 years, you're going to be in for some really good gains, at least if we look at the history and try and project that history into the future. As the graph is displayed above, the Bitcoin sharks and whales have seen their supply distribution go up recently, which suggests these large investors have been expanding their holdings. More specifically, the investors falling in the 10 to 10,000 range have added around 83,000 tokens in their wallet over the past month. This accumulation hasn't come in a constant manner, however, as these investors in fact reduced their supply for a period earlier in the month. This selling from the cohorts followed by Bitcoin's recovery beyond 97,000 bucks, so it's likely that the motive behind it was profit taking from the chart. It's also visible that this sell-off resulted in a pullback for the cryptocurrency. They hold so much money. Here we're talking 83,000 Bitcoin. This is not $83,000. This is 83,000, almost 100,000 Bitcoins. When they move their Bitcoin, things happen to the price of Bitcoin. When the retail investors, buy and sell 0.1 or 0.05 or something, it doesn't move the chart, right? Let's be honest. But if somebody's buying 10,000 Bitcoin, the price definitely has some kind of minor adjustment to it. When Saylor's buying Bitcoin, and he's buying 50,000 Bitcoin or whatever he's buying at a time, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. He's doing it, I learned, on the weekend, so the prices actually don't jump that much, and he's doing it in smaller increments. So if he went in and bought 50,000 Bitcoin, the price would move to the upside, right? So instead, he's buying 3,000 or 5,000 10 times or 20 times, so that way the price doesn't really take effect that much or get affected that much if they bought so much. For example, if the US came out and said, okay, we just bought 1 million Bitcoin, or pardon me, if they came out and said, we are going to buy 1 million Bitcoin, what's going to happen? Just due to speculation, the price of Bitcoin is going to go through the roof. And then they will have to buy the Bitcoin at a higher price, right? Instead, these guys are doing it on the low. They're buying it a little bit at a time. The price doesn't move. That way they can continue buying it on the low. But as I mentioned earlier in the show, there's 8 times whatever Bitcoin is being created in one day. There's effectively 8 times more being sold. So there's not enough Bitcoin to go around. In order to keep the price down, they keep it on the low. They don't come out in the news and say, we are buying, 1 million Bitcoin. Once they're done buying their 1 million Bitcoin, make no mistake, they're going to come out and say, we now have 1 million Bitcoin, and then the price is going to go through the frickin' roof. If they bought it at 100 grand, and their average price is 100 grand or even 120 or 150, and they come out and say, we just bought 1 million Bitcoin, then the price is going to go to 500,000, $1 million bucks, like immediately, or at least up a lot, substantially. So this is why the sharks keep buying. Sadly, the people who need it the most, the retail investors, keep selling. It's a sad occurrence because Bitcoin is supposed to be for the common person, and instead it's kind of been turning around into a large corporate asset now, where before long the banks are going to own all of it, the governments are going to own all of it, the big investment funds, the big the nation states, the pension funds, the people that, or the companies that have huge amounts of money are going to be buying all this, and they're going to be sitting on it. And when you want some, they're not going to be selling, right? At some point, there's going to be jack all left, and the prices are going to skyrocket. Again, I mentioned at the beginning, everybody knows this who's on this show. The number one rule in Bitcoin, never sell your Bitcoin. I know I'm going through some analysis here thinking that, the cycle peak might be a good time to sell, and then the cycle low is a good time to buy. Again, it's so difficult to read. I can only go on historical charts here and basically basing 100% on the historical charts. We can't predict what's going to happen in the future. That's why any of these shows you watch, they tell you, I'm telling you to, it's not financial advice. You have to, in your gut, you've got to have the balls to make this move, to basically say, this is what happened last time, and I'm going to go with it. I'm going to take that risk and hope that the same thing happens this time. If you take the risk and it works out for you, then excellent. If you lose your shirt and you end up with fuck all, it's a challenge, right? You can't risk your life savings, right? I'd love to put my life savings into Bitcoin, make no mistake, right? But if my life savings were lost, would I be able to look at myself in the mirror again? This is kind of what you have to look at. A good approach is to use the same kind of approach that you would with the traditional financial markets. You average in over time whatever it is that you calculate as your amount that you can afford every month. $100, $300, $1,000. Everybody's different. $200 a month. Or you split it up. If you've got $200 a month that you can put into investments and you want to go into Bitcoin, you split it into 50, 4 times a month, and that way you're averaging in. And if you continue on that path over the long term, you will end up with a substantial amount of money. Right now, I feel like we're still not close to that cycle peak. You can look at Ethereum, and when this is starting to go in toward this all-time high and beyond, this is the point where the altcoins are going to follow. They're following the price of Ethereum. Let's go into a little kind of analysis here. I see I've got 30 viewers, so let's give you guys what you came for. Let's go into two different things here. So number one, you keep hearing about money debasement, right? And these are basic financial literacy approaches that I feel like everybody should know this. Okay, so when they talk about money debasement, so I'm going to expand this here, and we will call the width. All right, let's just make the whole thing white so it's easy to deal with, or black, fine, and we'll use white as the foreground. Now, this program I'm using here, by the way, is just called paint.net. It's 100% free. There's another one called GIMP, G-I-M-P. Shittiest name, but actually a pretty good program. So if you want a alternative to Photoshop, a free alternative to Photoshop, GIMP is what you're going to get to be the closest to Photoshop, free. I would like paint.net also because it's very quick. You could do layers in it and it opens like literally within 2 seconds. GIMP is more like Photoshop. It takes a while to load all the stuff. So let's call this here the total money supply in whatever country. Okay, this line here, the total supply of all the money in the world, or in the US, okay, or any country, everything, right? This vertical line here we will call your cut. This is your portion, your piece of the pie of the total money supply. Okay, this is what you've got. Once they start printing more money, and the total money supply, as we said, is at the bottom. Okay, so let's say they print a little more money. Your cut, your piece of the pie doesn't change. It's still the same. However, the money supply gets a lot bigger. So your cut of the money gets to be less. So this is the money debasement part. Your money is worth less than it was before they printed the money. Now, let's say they print, this much money, right? Now, what's your stuff worth? What's your cut now worth in terms of the percentage of the total money supply? It's worth a lot less. So when they talk about inflation, this is the number one inflator. This money supply, this constant printing of money out of thin air. The money supply is a trillion, let's say, and then suddenly it's 2 trillion or 5 trillion. So your money is worth less and less and less every time they print more money. And now imagine this line. So we went from this amount of money, that was the total money supply, right? This is your cut. This was the total money supply. Then they printed the shit out of the money. So much more money was printed. Suddenly, your little cut of money is so much less. Now imagine this line now stretched across 5 of my monitors. Let's say it stretches across the whole room. Then how much is your little supply, right? So this is how inflation happens. They keep printing more money. Bitcoin, on the other hand, has a limited supply. There's only ever going to be 21 million ever created. And out of that, there's been approximately 4 to 6 million coins lost throughout, back when they weren't worth anything. People were like throwing them away like junk. So really, there's about 15 million Bitcoins in existence ever. That's all there's ever going to be. And the supply will never change. So if you bought this much Bitcoin and then you get some more money and you buy another sliver of Bitcoin, well, your stash is now bigger. The supply hasn't changed, but your portion of the supply is better. You buy a little more Bitcoin. Again, the stash hasn't changed. Now you have a bigger cut of the total supply. So that's the beauty of Bitcoin. That's why it was created. That is why there is a limited supply and there's only ever going to be that many coins left. Now let's get into some alt tracking, okay? And I just want to explain how these alts work. All right, so what generally is going to happen, again, if history holds true, is you're going to have Bitcoin. Everything follows Bitcoin. So you've got the Bitty, right? The Bitcoin price goes up. Then typically what happens is the Bitcoin price will start tracking kind of sideways and dipping a little, right? So this is BTC. I'm totally using the wrong tool here. All right. So fine. Then what happens is every other coin is watching Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin doing? What's Bitcoin doing? All the money's going into Bitcoin. Everything's going in here. All the money is in Bitcoin. Then as it starts tracking a bit sideways, then people start to get a little adventurous with their money. And they say, oh, well, Bitcoin is already up. I've made money on Bitcoin. Let me try my luck on these lesser coins. So money starts flowing then into Ethereum next. You did well on Bitcoin. Let me try my luck with ETH. So as things are going sideways in Bitty, then people are starting to put their money in ETH. So the money starts to go out of Bitcoin into ETH. Then the money starts flowing, and once people get their confidence, then the money starts flowing into the alts. So this is what we call the alt season. Then you're seeing all these little shit coins. I don't know why I'm doing this when I can just, right, alt season. So then people start putting their money into these alts. They take it out of Ethereum. The money starts flowing from Ethereum into these alts. And then you see all the liquidity going into these alts. These alts then, after Bitcoin, after everybody's watched Bitcoin, after the money comes out of Bitcoin, flows into ETH, flows into Solana, flows into, then it goes down. And it basically is going to go from Solana to the medium grade coins to the shit coins. And as time goes, it's going to go into the ultra shit coins. That's why not long after Bitcoin pumps, you then see Ethereum pumping, and then after that you start seeing all the Solana and the rest of the shit coins really pumping. So if you're going to take a risk on Bitcoins, do take this kind of methodology into account. Use it to your advantage. There's coins that follow Ethereum very closely, and almost at the same time Ethereum goes up. The price of those will go up too. There's coins that follow a little more slowly, so it'll take a few hours or even a few days for the price to kind of follow. So you almost have time, but you can almost see the succession of how shitty the coin is in terms of what the delay is after the Bitcoin price pumps. So as this kind of people put everybody's watching the Bitty, everybody's watching what's going on with the Bitcoin, all the money's in Bitcoin, the price is going up. As it kind of starts going sideways like this, that's where money then starts to flow in ETH. That's when money starts to flow in the altcoins. Often it's not long-lived, right? Lots of people are starting to throw their money into alts. They see that the alts, Bitcoin might go up 3%, 5%. Ethereum will go up 6, 7%. Solana might go up 10%. Doge, 10%. Shitcoins might go up 15, 20, 30, 50%. So people are really interested in these things at that point. They're putting their money in. But also remember that once people are making this 30%, 50%, 200%, whatever it is, meme coin, for example, where these things are pumping like mad, expect that on the other end of it, money is going to go into these alts. But expect over here, once people make their money, so money goes into these alts, right? The price goes up. That looks a little bit too much like something else. All right, there. The money goes into alts. The price might quickly go up, but just as quickly as it goes up, the price then is going to drop and the liquidity comes out. Don't be this guy holding the bag, selling it down here, okay? There are some better altcoins which, are more lasting. But the lower you go down the list, the lower the market cap is. If you're into an altcoin with, hundreds of millions or a billion in market cap, it's not going to move as fast. It's not going to go up and down as fast as this. If you're into something that's got, a couple $1,000,000 in market cap, which is liquidity is the other name for it. Market cap, it's the same thing. How much money totally altogether is in this coin, right? If you're into one and, it looks great because it's got the potential to go up hundreds of percent, and, I want to get in and get the fuck out, right? If you get out anywhere above this here, we'll call this 80%. If you get out somewhere in here, you've done great. If you're trying to time this completely, and if you're not on top of this and watching this at all times, it very easily could flip right down, even less than what your line's here, and suddenly you check it out 2 days later and the price is down here and you lost your chance. And what are you going to do at this point, right? The coin has lost all its liquidity. There's not much money in it. There's not much volume in it. And this is where you lose your shirt. Okay, if you're going to get into these alts, especially these higher risk altcoins, you need to be watching this thing, and you also need to be satisfied at this kind of level, right? If you can get in and out, you get in here, you get out here, be happy. Okay, you got out here, let's say, and the price went up to here. Do not be upset. Okay, that's why it's so important to buy when the price is low and to get out when the price is reasonably high. If you're buying when the price is already up a lot, if you're buying here, you're risking. It's a very narrow range you're dealing with here, right? You're not in a position where you can profit that much. You and me are not these Class A investors, right? And nobody is. If they tell you they are, they're bullshitting you. Even these Wall Street guys, nobody is that good, okay? So it's proven that these for example, mutual funds, like 80% of them do crappy. And what they end up doing is they cut off the ones that don't do well and they put in the ones that do well, and that skews their analytics. So it makes it look like they can always say, oh, look, our mutual funds 80% of the time did this and this and this. No, it's bullshit. They just removed the ones that were shit, that lost money, and they added in some other ones that did well. It's all a lie, folks. So again, we want to be the guy that's buying down here, going back into the full chart. We want to be the people buying in right here. Okay, this is the cycle low. This is where we want to be buying this stuff. We don't want to be buying it at the top. We don't want to buy it here, because then you have so little room to play with. But if you had bought it way over here, you'd be sitting on the couch, sitting pretty. I can just wait, no rush, let the prices, let the time go, let the years, 1 year, 2 year pass. Then you're sitting pretty while everybody else is trying to time the market and say, oh, I'm going to buy in here and get, 30%, when you bought in here and you're getting 700% gains. So same kind of scenario with the alts. First, the money's going into Bitcoin. Then you want to look at the secondary coins. ETH money will go into ETH, money will go into Solana, and then when people gain a little more confidence that, hey, I know how to trade now with this, newbie shuffle, right? Then the money's going to start going to alts. The liquidity, the market cap of some of the alts will go up, but rest assured that the shittier the coin, the faster it's going to go down. So don't lose your shirt. I don't want anybody on this channel losing anything. But keep in mind, that when you're talking about Bitcoin, I've said it before, when it's time to sell, there's not going to be anybody out there that's saying, putting on a microphone and saying, this is a great time to sell, folks. Do sell. No, every man for themselves at that point. You want to make your profit and get out and be happy with it. Period. If you get to the point and you're in a very good coin, I'm talking about, the top 5 in liquidity or the top 7, like if we go back to this, if you're in any of these in the top, I wouldn't even call this pie, I would say top 15, you can almost rest assured that these are going to live throughout the cycles. Once you get down to this shit, right? Look, and I'm talking Decentraland at 100 mana. Like, this isn't even shit. There's almost $1 billion in liquidity. Once you get into, page 5 kind of thing, this is crap. This is where it's going to go up. And if it goes up and you made a pretty penny, look, just anything, for example, right? 62%. So here, let's click it, right? Anticipate that this, as we see, right, the price goes up, the price goes down. The price goes up, the price goes down. The price goes up, the price goes down. Don't be the guy, if the price goes up and you flip this ultra shit coin and you made a good profit, don't be the guy who has to wait for a year, 2 years for the price to rebound, if it ever rebounds at all. What if this thing never actually comes back, right? You've lost all your money. That's it, right? Now, you're super happy because you made 63% in a few hours, but if you weren't that person who sold at the top, then you certainly aren't that person who made 62%. You're the person who watched it, you bought it low, you watched it go up, you waited too long, and you lost your shirt. So when you're dealing with these ultra shit coins, I don't even like to deal with this ultra shit, to be honest. For the most part, I like to stick on page 1. There's certainly industries that are interesting. For example, AI infrastructure coins are very interesting right now. Real world assets are very interesting right now. That's basically coins that are going to hold actual assets. For example, you keep hearing that at one point every real estate sale transaction is going to be done through the blockchain. Well, this would be done through a real world asset, right? A real world coin. AI, the AI infrastructure, the gaming infrastructure, and the real world assets are quite interesting now, and I think have really good potential. A very good place to find info on that is on the Kraken homepage. If you go to categories like we've got here, they have it very nicely set up on their page, and they've got the top 3 in each category of those ones that I mentioned: AI infrastructure, gaming infrastructure, and real world assets, RWA. Open an account. You don't even have to actually open an account to see those coins, the top ones in each of those. That is where I'm not going to go further than that. I'm not going into page frickin' 10. I'm going to stick with the top ones in those categories, and that way I know I'm not going to lose my shirt. Back to the story here. The selling from the cohorts followed by Bitcoin recovery beyond 97,000 is likely the motive behind it and profit taking we've already talked about. During the latest renewal of bullish momentum, the sharks and whales have again resumed their Bitcoin accumulation and have notably surpassed their holdings from the earlier peak. So far, the groups have shown no signs of profit taking, which can naturally be a bullish sign for the rally's sustainability. In the same chart, Sentiment has also attached the data for the supply distribution of the investor carrying less than 0.1 Bitcoin, the shrimps. Interestingly, these investors have been selling while the sharks and whales have gone through accumulation. This is what we were saying. The shrimps, less than 0.1, are selling, right? The people who need the money the most. And the whales who need it the least are buying. Like, this is the time to buy. This is the time to hold. It's not too late even to get into some of those coins that I mentioned before. Again, not financial advice, but for me, I like in the gaming infrastructure verse, I like Superverse. I like AVAX, Avalanche. I like Echelon Prime. In the real-world assets, I like Injective. In the mining sphere, I like Algorand. But, I'm into these. The few Algorand I've been in for a very, very long time. AVAX, Echelon Prime, Superverse. Maybe a week or two I've been into it, not long at all. I don't have huge bags of this stuff, but I'm happy I'm in at a relatively early time. But again, until we see the all-time highs in ETH, that's when we're going to see these other coins hitting their all-time highs too, these altcoins. So again, a reasonable spot to look is in that KuCoin first page where it tells you the by category. Check that out. I feel like it's still not too late. If we go into here and we check cryptos and we go to this Ethereum and we want to look at all, the all-time high here is $4,700 and we're sitting at 26. So I wouldn't be overly surprised if this cycle peak far surpasses, up into the 10,000s. And while this is pumping, while ETH is pumping, all these altcoins are also going to follow it along. So this is what we're looking for, is this Ethereum all-time high. Once we hit that all-time high, and again, don't be faked out, right? Because people maybe have mistaken this for the all-time high and sell, and well, no, wait a minute. Now is the real all-time high kind of thing. So once Ethereum hits that all-time high, and again, I'm going by timelines. Historically, the cycle peak is based on Bitcoin's 4-year halving cycle, and so far it's always been October to December, really October, November, the year after the halving. So I'm estimating that it's going to be pretty similar this time around, maybe backed up a little bit, but around that kind of same timeline. And by then, we would have seen Ethereum's price way up. We would have seen a lot of the altcoin prices also way up. So I don't feel like it's too late. Like I said, I got into a few of these, especially the gaming ones, just a couple of weeks ago. And, and I'm already in great profits. But again, I'm not jumping the gun and selling because the price went up 20-something%. No, I'm holding. I want I'm talking like 3x, 5x, 10x before this is done. I'm personally looking at those type of gains before I'm considering flipping these things. And really, I'm looking at Bitcoin and its 4-year cycle and the all-time high reaching in October November of this year. A reasonable indication of traditionally where the prices go with the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin cycle. Now, if you're new to this, there's people that have been into this for years. I've been into this for many years now. And for people that are kind of new to crypto, I don't know if I'd suggest at all going into these altcoins. Get your feet wet with some Bitcoin. Sit on some Biddy, sit on some XRP, sit on maybe some Solana, and hold on to this for a few years, right? Look at it, watch the cycle, hold on for more than 4 years, and get your own idea of what happens throughout these Bitcoin cycles. Again, if you feel the need, because I know everybody's going to, they don't want to watch all this technical analysis, they don't want the education, they want the frickin' coin. Show me the frickin' coins, right? So I know everybody wants these 10x, 50x, 1000x that they keep seeing, so they just make it rich. But it's just like everything. The more work you put into it, the more information you gather, the more financial literacy you're able to obtain and, withhold in your head and kind of learn. Nobody gets, failure is often the best way to learn. So take your time with this stuff. Don't lose your shirt. I don't want anyone out there losing your shirt. But again, every man's for himself when it's time to sell this stuff. Now I feel like it's not too late to buy in. We still haven't gone near the cycle peak for Ethereum. Or the cycle highs. So I feel like it's not too late to get in still. But again, keep an eye on that. No one's going to jump in and say sell, sell, sell. You want to be that guy selling at the top or near the top, 80% of the top, we'll call it. You don't want to be the guy that holds this thing forever and, the price drops to, the next cycle peak, which is nothing. If you have huge concerns about, winning or losing, I would stick with the main coins. Bitcoin, Solana, XRP. These should not, and in fact, if you're really conservative, stick to Bitcoin. You know that the price is going to cycle back up, even if you just want to buy it and hold it forever, right? You know that the price also will go up forever. This is what Michael Saylor's doing. This is what BlackRock's doing. This is what a lot of the huge companies are doing. They are not buying it so they can sell it. They're buying it so they can control you and the world. Let's face it. There's going to be a point where you're going to have a friend that says, hey man, I just bought 50,000 Satoshis, right? Which, one Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million Satoshis, right? So there's going to be a point where there's no Bitcoin left anywhere, and your friend's going to say, I just got 50,000 Satoshis, and they'll be so happy about it because there's going to be none left, and they're going to feel like they're rich. But if you get in now and you hold, like 0.1 of a Bitcoin is 10 million Satoshis, right? And at one point in the future, they're not going to be counting with Bitcoin anymore. They're going to be counting in Satoshis. Like there's going to be so little Bitcoin, and the banks and the governments are going to own it all, that all that's going to be left for the common folk are Satoshis, right? Right now you can get, what is the count? 962 Satoshis for $1 US. But once that gets to 1 Satoshi for $1 US, Bitcoin's at 100 million bucks. If it gets to 10 Satoshis, Bitcoin's 10 million. If it gets to 100, Bitcoin is at $1 million. So it keeps going this way. $1 used to be able to get you, 50,000 Satoshis or something. Then it was, 5,000, then it was 2,000, then it was 1,000, now it's 960. So it's going to keep going backwards like that. A good scenario is you buy and you hold through all these cycles, and you hold on for a whole bunch of years, and you should do very well. I mean, you used to be able to buy a house with, 50,000 Satoshi Bitcoin, right? Or 5,000 Bitcoin. Then it was 500 Bitcoin. Then it was 50 Bitcoin. Now for about, 5 Bitcoin, you can get a pretty decent house. And in another 4 years, it's going to be more like 0.5 Bitcoin. You can get a pretty decent house. And then another 4 years from there, it's going to be like 0.05 or 0.005 that you can get a decent house. Keep that in mind. It's a long-term approach that always is the best approach. If you flip your stuff too early, you buy it and you sell it, and yeah, I made 40, 60%, yay, and then the price goes up 1,000 times what it is over 4 or 8 years, you're going to kick yourself and say, man, I had half a Bitcoin and I sold it, and now it's worth half a Bitcoin is worth $2 million. Imagine that, right? So dollar cost averaging, like I was saying before, is a good way to go. That way you're accumulating a little bit at a time. If the price goes down, buy more. That's what the smart people are doing. Hopefully, folks, this has helped you out, helping everybody gain some financial literacy. Please do yourselves a favor. I've got a whole bunch of books in the comments, and if you read these books, they're 100% free. I have the links to the YouTube audio book for all of them. There's also the link to the writers and authors website, and also a link to Amazon if you want to pay for them. But all the links are there. They are free. I also have tips on steps to create financial literacy. But, if you can go through those books right away, you're going to learn so much. I've got an order on purpose, and if you're able to read them kind of from top to bottom, or listen to them, I should say, from top to bottom, you'll end up so much better than you are today. And I don't care if you're the common guy who knows nothing about money, or if you're an economics major. If you read these books, you will get some good learning, and you'll go a long way in understanding the history of money and the future of money, and what to do with your money so the banks don't take it away. And there's some in there that are trying to really teach you how to be rich and not be the common guy. There's I'll just read the titles here quickly before we have to wrap it up. But the number one book I've got is The Bitcoin Standard, and make no mistake, you see the title of the book. It's a famous book, but about the first 5 or 7 chapters don't even talk about Bitcoin. They talk about money, what the history was, why it was invented, what it was, what it is, what it's going to be in the future. And of course, it gives you a great understanding about Bitcoin as well. I also have on the list, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. A freaking excellent book. And this, you will never, ever get ripped off by a bank ever again. You will also get to the point where you own the bank and the bank doesn't own you, or you don't owe anything to the. It's a great book. You definitely, that's number 2 on my list. Number 3, I've got The Millionaire Fastlane. It got by a guy named M.J. DeMarco, who went from eating, noodles out of a carton every day, totally broke, to owning 3 Lambos and a huge 20 room house on the hill, kind of thing, and he gives you some really, really good tips on how to get there. Psychology of Money, excellent book, The Psychology of Money. Teaches you about moving away from the norm and not caring about what everybody else cares about, what they've been brainwashed to believe about their possessions. A really, really good book. I've got Rich Dad, Poor Dad in there as well. Another one that I would say is excellent is Think and Grow Rich. I'll try to add some more books to this in the future. And again, I mentioned, there's tips for financial literacy in there as well, too. So feel free to go through the comments. And, I want to hear your comments, too. So please do hop in and share some comments on my feed. I try to respond to everybody when possible. Folks, there is about $900 trillion of assets worldwide. So go out there and get some. It's time that's scarce, so use your time wisely. Spend less money than what you earn. A very, very easy, quick tip. If you suddenly start making more money, start saving more money. Don't start spending more money. And start saving today. Start saving when you're young. Start investing when you're young. Ideally, when you're 18 or 20, you start investing, and hopefully you can retire when you're 40 or 45. If you've got a great idea, start with that idea today. Don't wait and say, I'm not ready. Even if you're not ready, start with your idea today, and things will slowly come together. Even if you fail, at least you'll have the satisfaction that you tried, and you won't have this guilt always saying, I had a great thing and I never actually tried it. It's better to try and fail than to not try at all. I'm on a path to have over 500 subscribers, so if you haven't done so yet, please do share, like, comment, and especially subscribe. I'm so happy that you joined me, and we will see you on the next stream, folks. Have a great night.